Hello and welcome to the Analytics Edge, sponsored by NetSpring.
The Analytics Edge is a podcast about real-world stories of innovation. We're here to explore how data-driven insights can help you make better business decisions. I'm your host, Thomas Dong, VP of Marketing at NetSpring. And for today's episode, my co-host is Vijay Ganesan, co-founder and CEO at NetSpring. Thank you for joining me on the show today, Vijay.
Great to be here, Thomas. Looking forward to the session with Jason.
Well, today's topic is all about marketing analytics. And our guest is Jason Davis, founder and CEO of Simon Data, a next-generation customer data platform built on Snowflake that is simple enough for marketers with zero ETL, yet powerful enough for data team. Jason, we're delighted to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Thomas. And thank you, Vijay. It's great to be on.
Well, one of the primary drivers of big data is, of course, the explosion of customer and marketing data. Today's marketers are capturing and gathering everything from transactional data to behavioral data and customer feedback. So a CDP like Simon Data creates a comprehensive customer database for all that data and makes it accessible by other systems to activate, analyze, track, and manage customer interactions. So Jason, you're a data scientist with a PhD from UT Austin turned entrepreneur. We'd love to hear what led you to first found Adtuitive, an adtech platform, and of course, now Simon Data, a warehouse native CDP.
I always joke. First, I've been working with my co-founder and CTO, Matt Walker, for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years come September this year. Yes, that's a pretty big anniversary. But I always joke, it took me 5 years into my PhD in machine learning to realize the value in data isn't in the algorithms. It's actually how the data is used. And I really just saw a big opportunity 15 years ago in really transforming the way business stakeholders and marketers can leverage their core business data in a way that they couldn't. And my previous business was a business called Adtuitive. It used high-powered machine learning algorithms to you really leverage retailers' product catalogs to automatically create, syndicate, and optimize ads across the web. That business was ultimately acquired by Etsy, and now that technology now powers Etsy's internal ad systems. Fast forwarding to Simon, the opportunity behind what we're building here came from our experience building Etsy's data infrastructure. We spent about 18 months building out their core data infrastructure. It was actually a requirement to properly implement some of the ad technologies we brought to market with them. And this was circa 2010. And this was in a world of cloud was still in its infancy, and cloud data wasn't a thing. And this was in a world where if you wanted to build a big data cluster, you had to build out a Hadoop cluster, and you had to buy 100 servers. And you had to invest in $2-3 million in hardware. We had a networks guy who'd show up at the office with a DeWalt jacket and 2 drills. And then $5 million later with software licenses from Cloudera and Vertica, a truckload of servers. All that would they disappeared to Secaucus, New Jersey, with the servers racked. And then suddenly we could then go and build our big data cluster. And we did that, and it was incredibly powerful. It was, a perspective across the entire business from, browsing to search to customer support, buy side and sell side of a two-sided marketplace. It really provided an incredible data asset the business had never seen before. But the fundamental challenge that brought us to Simon, was that data was just inaccessible, outside of the experts in my team. We saw what transformation data could affect, through, what at the time was very, very simple marketing use cases. And we had a thesis that, really started with this notion, of, hey, with, in an enterprise that has, sophisticated first party data, what would an application look like that could enable, marketing, not just to drive analytics and insights, but actually, to affect, operations, to create segments, to personalize messaging, to use data to optimize across, the dozens and dozens of channels and the, hundreds of technology systems that are used today, throughout your typical enterprise customer. That was the thesis going into it. And when we went to market, and we first prototyped the business, the second realization came to play, which was like the cloud is going to change everything. And Redshift appeared and suddenly it was $8.25 an hour. And suddenly what, took us 6 months and $5 million and, a few dozen drills, you can now do, in an afternoon and get started. And really the bet that we saw at the time was, hey, data is going to be democratized. The access to high-powered data infrastructure is going to change materially. But what's not going to change is how non-technical stakeholders, how business folks who aren't SQL experts, furthermore need to use the data in ways that SQL is insufficient. We just saw a huge gap around the problems that we're solving today.
Right. So you've really targeted this business user and marketing in particular. And I imagine that's because budget is typically sat within the marketing organization. So they have money to spend. When it comes to marketing technology, the data shows that the average enterprise now has over 100 different tools and solutions in place. But with this move towards really cheap storage and compute, the landscape is changing. A lot of new emerging warehouse native apps are coming about. Curious what your thoughts on what the modern marketing data stack looks like today and what it may look like, let's say, in 4 or 5 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, look, historically, MarTech has consisted of data silos, led by the beautiful pitch that so many marketers in a previous generation were wooed by, and just put the pixel on your website and everything else will just fall through automatically. And reality is that marketing technology has developed to a state where you have each one of these 100 enterprise technologies, each having their 100 copies of your customer data. And listeners might say, "Oh, well, that seems expensive." But the worst part about it is that there are actually 100 different copies of your data that don't reconcile with each other. They both represent a different, and somewhat inaccurate, perspective of the customer. And to the first point of transformation, around the modern marketing data stack, which is incredibly self-evident, but is worth calling out in the context of where MarTech has come from, is actually enabling true centralization. With true centralization, it enables an enterprise focus across aggregating data from all channels, not just what someone clicked on the website. Offline, IoT support channels. Just because I bought something from a retailer doesn't mean it ever arrived in my house. So let's think about how to, let's have shipping data and returns data and everything else that is actually required to properly instrument a real business. Put it in a single place, which is governed, which is secure. And which is complete and accurate. And this really is the foundation for this next generation of SaaS applications generally, and certainly for MarTech and the customer 360 and customer data. It's natural that this is sort of one of the primary areas of focus as well.
And so that has led to an architectural change. So if we take this 100 MarTech solutions, do you see potentially any consolidation of marketing capabilities because you have this new customer 360 perspective that is avoiding all this duplication of customer data?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things going on. There's consolidation. There's also, I think one of the big challenges around CDPs historically, is their activation model is just completely broken. CDPs came along and said, "Oh, you have 100 pieces of marketing technology, and they all have different data. Well, we'll fix that. So we'll take all your centralized data and we'll copy it out everywhere, and that will fix all the problems around, around the incompleteness and inaccuracies." But suddenly, now you've increased your cost because instead of having each of these vendors see 10% of your data, they're now seeing a bigger percentage of it. And you have a massive compliance and security issue as well, because now you have 100 points of failure with fly-by-night, vendors. Those 100 were chosen from I think Chief MarTech last, categorized 11,000 MarTech vendors. Not all of which are SOC 2 compliant. Many of which are, who knows where the data is actually housed. But this was the gold standard, for CDPs for, even up until now to an extent. And it's really just, the word activate has really adopted a relatively broken, it's fundamentally broken, when, even today when people, still talk about what it means to activate your customer data into your 100, enterprise, applications.
Jason, very interesting what you said about how traditional CDPs told you, hey, you have 100 marketing systems. Don't worry, we'll solve the problem. We'll just make 100 copies, right? But with what you're doing with Simon Data, you're flipping it. You're saying, no, there could be many systems, but everything is going to get centralized in the data warehouse. And And it's sort of similar to the point of view that that we have around product data, right? Product instrumentation data, and how you combine it with other data, a business context in the data warehouse, and so on. But in the marketing world, there's hundreds, thousands of different systems, right? So centralization is tough, right? So what should data leaders be thinking about if they want to embark on this journey of centralization of this data?
It's not a 2-quarter long project. I think for data leaders, I think, peeling the onion back, everything starts with business value. And none of this matters if you don't have a complete and accurate view of the customer. And I think with that, complete and accurate is only relevant relative to the end applications. So I think the first point of focus is saying, let's actually lean into our business stakeholders. Let's talk to our marketing teams. Let's think about, what their strategies are, for the back half of this year and into next year. Let's realize that, we're in a new world, but we're in a new world where, the previous world was marketing did its own thing in a vacuum, and, data did its own thing to service finance. We're in this new world where, data is truly a centralized, function, not just for insights reporting, but to really drive a new set of applications across product, market, and beyond. So step one is value creation needs to start with an alignment around use cases, and then making sure that results in a clear articulation of what data needs to be available, collected, and then execute well. Let's make sure it's complete. Let's make sure it's accurate. I mean, this stuff is obvious, but all too often, data teams just find it easier not to have the conversations cross-functionally, and stick to what they know and believe. But just like, any other engineering project, in the absence of requirements, it goes down a road which just, is not quite right.
You touched upon security, privacy, and, you've got, SaaS services that are probably don't even have SOC 2 compliance and so on. So how important is that? I mean, clearly it's important, but how much of it is driving this desire to centralize data?
We saw when GDPR shut entire companies down because they looked at their systems and they were like, you know what, we're barely profitable, and then the incremental cost is going to take me to actually make this work. I'm just going to pack my bags and get a day job. And look, systems complexity, and data, and lack of data, organization makes GDPR intractable. How do you even begin to think about, deleting data, fundamentally is hard. And it's something that so many systems were designed, to do. And you take a setup where you have, centralized data syndicated out to 100 enterprise, marketing applications, and look, there are plenty of sort of, businesses in the CDP category that attempt to go back to these channels and clean it up. It's a nightmare. It's a total nightmare. But centralized data changes all that, because if you have one copy of the data, and it's governed, and you know where it is, then, suddenly you can think and reason about it in a much more, clarified and simplified way. And then beyond that, look, all trends are pointing towards, having, around enterprises just being more mature, and more thoughtful and more organized around their customer data.
So top of mind when it comes to data privacy, of course, is GA4. So marketer would love to get your thoughts and on how data leaders should be thinking about first party data and all these replacement strategies vendors are proposing. There's just a litany of everybody, trying to take this as a moment in time and a trigger for new technologies.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak at a high level. And look, I think the most important thing to remember with any analytics offering that Google builds is that it's fundamentally designed to sell AdWords. And I tell our customers this all the time. There's an incredible bias in tooling analytics. And it's, there's a great reason why Google gives away this stuff for free. Sometimes, so obviously some parts of it they're charging for, around BigQuery access and whatnot. But it's still just like pennies on the dollar compared to what you pay elsewhere. I think it's really critical to understand that, that you need to, again, back to my previous point, and roll up your sleeves, talk with your marketing team, get your data science and analytics resources involved, understand the attribution and the causation that's driving demand generation, and conversion and brand recognition for your business. And if it happens to align with Google's relatively digitally focused strategy, then GA4 is going to be a great path for you. But if it doesn't, then you're going to want to think about doing something more bespoke. And there are many other folks in the market, our friends at Snowplow as an example, who are aggressively pursuing strategies that allow you to own this a little bit more easily. I'm sure there are plenty of other options beyond that as well.
Let's move on to the next segment. I want to kick it off with the discussion on composable CDP versus package CDP. This is a topic that's popular these days, heavily debated. Would love to hear your opinion on that, and which category does Simon Data fit in?
So there are actually two axes in the conversation. That I think get lost in category definition. When we hear the word composable, what this means is, does it work with your cloud data warehouse? Does it natively integrate into the enterprise data investments you built? Does it orient to your Snowflake, your BigQuery data as a first-class citizen? In that sense, we are 100% composable. On the package side, I would think, we would generally call package, something more to the tune of being vertically integrated. So something like Segment, as an example, they collect your data, they aggregate your data, they'll spit it into Snowflake and they can pull it out as well. But that's sort of a pipe towards the end of their broader data pipeline and their core infrastructure. So Segment is on the other side, and they're vertically integrated. And fully integrated, because you don't need a cloud data warehouse to make Segment work. There's another dimension, which is bundled versus unbundled, which I think is important to distinguish. And obviously Salesforce comes with a bundled solution. You don't need to get anything else besides Salesforce. And then Reverse ETL is an unbundled solution, because if you want CDP capabilities, you can use Reverse ETL. You have to build your own identity models. You need to think about, any sort of predictive capabilities you might need. You need to think about how to leverage, third-party data and third-party device graphs when needed. A lot of these, some of these guys have done a good job of, doing Reverse ETL very well, but you need to fill in the gaps. On the other side, a more bundled approach will look at, the CDP capabilities, which all gets loosely defined as the data requirements, for marketing to interface with, their, cloud data infrastructure. And our perspective is, look, if you're an enterprise if you're an enterprise with 100 MarTech tools, trying to choose from 11,034 chief MarTech, sanctioned, vendors in the category, I'm not so sure, that you need to choose from 5,000 data tools, to go with a fully unbundled approach to your CDP. And so that's our perspective in the market.
We've talked about the data warehouse becoming the center of gravity of all data, marketing, customer data that historically sat in different silos. And you've built Simon Data on top of Snowflake. And what have you seen that unlock this? You've started with a warehouse first approach. It was fundamentally a different architecture from ground up. And what does that help unlock in terms of business value?
We can actually deploy in two different ways. We can deploy directly on top of the warehouse, or as a managed service, where we can, we have more flexibility around data, but you lose some of the governance benefits on top of that. But look, for our customers who have made bigger investments around their cloud data strategy, who have and are starting to have relatively strong data capabilities that can assemble the pretty broad view of the customer. A fully connected approach where we can deploy directly on top of the warehouse has big advantages. Data doesn't move unless you actually have to ship it out to a channel for execution of a campaign. You don't have to pay for your data twice. Latency of data is reduced because there's no ETL requirements. And then of course, there are other benefits around security and privacy that we've discussed. It's also worth saying that, look, we also have many customers where, they build on top of our managed approach. And in this architecture, we either ETL data into our platform, or we can interface via Snowflake share. But Here we can, we can enrich from other sources, and we can share the data back that we've also enriched from other sources to actually make our customers' data environments richer. And it's just a bit more flexible for customers who are maybe 25% of their way into the journey, as opposed to customers who are maybe 50, 75, or 100%.
Maybe the smaller customers that don't have, mature data infrastructure, they would choose the managed service approach, and then the larger enterprises probably go for the warehouse native approach.
That's the general trend, but let's also not forget, there's a reason why Snowflake has 150% or 180% annualized net expansion. And that's not just because businesses are growing. It's because they're aggressively migrating from on-prem systems. And it's not coming from small customers. It's coming from big customers. So there are also plenty of big customers, who don't actually have, sufficient data today, in their cloud data environment. It comes from on-prem systems. They can stage it into different areas where we can easily, merge it in. But that's sort of another dimension to all this.
And one of the bets that Snowflake is making is around what they're calling these Snowflake connected apps, which of course Simon is one, NetSpring is one as well. How did you decide to go all in on this approach with Snowflake?
We've been building on their technology for 7 years now. We've developed a very close commercial partnership. Whenever, we can sort of very tight alignment with their vision, both technically and commercially, around where they're pushing the business. Ultimately, Snowflake calls themselves a data platform for a very good reason, even though everyone else, who is not forward thinking, relative to their vision, is just going to call them a data warehouse. A platform is something you build upon. A platform is something, that, transcends reporting and insights. So for us, it's as much about the technology and what they built today, as it is the vision of where they're pushing, their business forward, in the future.
Jason, let's talk about personalization. So personalization is obviously critical for marketers. And, there's numerous studies that have shown that brands that offer a more personalized touch with customers do much better. Some personalization has a real-time element to it. Example, you're personalizing what a user sees based on the interaction they just did in the app, or something that, you have to react to immediately and then personalize the experience. And historically, data warehouses are not designed for real-time workloads. So how do you achieve real-time personalization with a data warehouse-centric CDP?
For the past 20 minutes here, we've been, focusing on, the warehouse as, the singular source. Reality is, it's actually not the singular source. It's a primary source, and it's critical, and it represents the entirety of data at rest in our platform. Yet, for real-time use cases, while we do have customers who route real-time data through the warehouse, a big part of our strategy and a big part of meeting the requirements and the use cases of marketing teams today, is providing streaming support. And we look at this as data, which is obviously not at rest, but data is in transit, has a different set of governance requirements. And look, it's an open question around, how, the cloud data warehouse evolves, to support real time. There are technology questions. There's also just general abstraction questions. To what extent is SQL the right tool, to do real time, query processing? And obviously there's, many people solving this problem. There are many different approaches, but, there's no standard. SQL is beyond the standard now on how to, how to query data at rest. But there's big open questions around where real time will be. Certainly, we're very eager to see what real time looks like in 1 to 5 years from now. The other dimension as well, when we start thinking about data sources is, thinking about data that's real time but isn't streamed in, which is a push model, but data might be pulled in. So you think about marketing applications where, Vijay, if I'm going to send you an offer, to go on a flight, well, I want to make sure that flight is still available. So you can think about ways of accessing APIs in real time to make sure that, when an ad is displayed or a message is delivered, real time pricing, real time inventory, any other context that, may not, be naturally represented, in a stream or a warehouse, still, needs to be queried and surfaced. So that's sort of the third, sort of core data source or data type, I should say, that we integrate into.
I actually wanted to go back to an earlier comment you made about reverse ETL and fitting into this unbundled CDP concept. And we're seeing a lot of marketing applications emerging with their own native integrations with the data warehouse. So curious what your thoughts are on, where you see reverse ETL evolving to. Will it still be as important as it seems to be right now?
I think reverse ETL has been sort of a great catalyst for this conversation we're having today. I think when we look back 5 years from now, we'll look at reverse ETL as the moment in time, that really changed the orientation of the warehouse to be more than just a thing that data scientists would query, and CEOs would demand, some charts and graphs for their board meeting. I think it really is an application that makes it incredibly easy to copy from A to B, to write SQL, which everyone knows how to interface the warehouse, and to use that same SQL to put data into your end channels. And so I think it's sort of forever grateful for the category, and I'm sure the three of us are, right. The challenge with reverse ETL is a couple of things. One is, look, if you're investing $1 million a year in Snowflake, $5 million a year in Snowflake, we have customers who are spending well over $50 million a year on Snowflake. You have a lot of data. Your data is miles wide. And you have richness in your customer data. You have data across online and offline contexts. You have data that describes everything we've been talking about. And you're trying to put it in a marketing application that's built on maybe MongoDB. Or maybe some Oracle database that was architected in 2003. And the fundamental challenge is you have 3 miles of data and you're trying to fit it into 3 feet or 3 inches of column storage. And you need to make real design trade-offs. And at the end of the day, it's impossible to make the right trade-offs. And the result is that you're still in a situation where if the end marketer needs to actually build a new segment, and or execute against their Q3 campaign strategy, fields will not be there. And you still need to go back to the warehouse. You need to go and ingest new fields. And the whole idea of actually democratizing data access and enabling the business stakeholder, it's very hard to sort of do it in a way which is end to end. So that's sort of number one key challenge there. The other thing which is pragmatic to the category. Is look, Braze built their own integrated reverse ETL capabilities. I think they have a team of 2 engineers working on the stuff, and it's a SQL interface. You plug it into Redshift or Snowflake, and you write some queries, and the data gets sucked in. So I do think from a capabilities perspective as well, none of the end channels will want to get disintermediated in this way anyway.
So it's interesting what you're talking about, where in this new world where everything is plugging into the warehouse. You have apps pushing to the warehouse and other apps pulling from the warehouse. And that's going to be the way these integrations happen. And less of these intermediaries are necessary to manage that data going from one place to another. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Look, Snowflake's vision is for everything, for there to be a unified data layer for everything. Yeah. I think it's going to take a bit to get there, but.
All right. So in that answer, you actually mentioned something about democratizing data access, and just by definition, we're talking about kind of 2 stakeholders here. You're talking about the business user, you're talking about the data teams who need to support those business users. So I thought you'd be a great resource here to leverage your thoughts on kind of this necessary collaboration between data leaders and business people as they're evaluating new technologies. Have you come up with any, successful tactics to enable this type of collaboration so that they're reaching consensus faster on new technology solutions?
The problem with so many technologies and implementations today around MarTech architectures and implementations is teams come together for highly operational and tactical purposes. And that's basically the absolute worst way of cross-functional collaboration. And they're so fatigued by the time they get through a quarter that no one even takes a step back to talk about the strategy and where you want to head. So I think the first requirement, is to ask the question, like, if you're trying to feed your kids, what food do you need to have in the fridge? And is it possible that as they turn from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, that you can get the right food in the fridge, so maybe they can start making their own lunch. The analogy I like to make is, I have a 4 and an 8-year-old. The 4-year-old, when he says I want food, I ask him what he wants and I make it for him. The 8-year-old, when he says he wants food, I say, dude, go make yourself a sandwich. Like, you're 8 years old. Like, we've had the conversation around what kind of food you want to eat. Like, I no longer have to make you a sandwich. And I think so much, so many, marketing, technology, environments are every single time anything comes, I want a grape. Okay, let me get you that, but it's in the fridge in the basement. I'll be back tomorrow. And then the consumers are starving to death.
Yeah, that's great. Such a colorful example and analogy there. I think everybody can understand. So let's close this off with maybe some forward-thinking thoughts of where you see things headed. We talked a lot about the data warehouse revolutionizing the way we're storing and managing our data. And so this concept of single source of truth, customer 360, it's been tossed around for many, many years now, but have we hit an inflection point perhaps where enterprises have finally achieved that? Curious on your thoughts if you agree that we're done, we found a solution, or what, if anything, still stands in the way of this true dream of having a customer 360 view?
We're a lot closer to hitting that dream. But the problem is the customer 360 is a moving target. Right now, like, we're at a 360, but it's a pretty small circle. And look, like, with the macro where it is, and especially across, a lot of commoditization around e-commerce suppliers and commoditization of so many of these, so many brands today, competition is just, fiercer than ever. So it's not just about, developing the customer 360, but it's actually having a 360, which is, which has that next level of granularity. It's about really picking apart the nuance and identifying, the relationships between online and offline behaviors in a way that, just having basic visibility around, has the person ever purchased in store? Have they purchased online? When do they purchase online? Those are the basics that, 5 years ago we were, saying is required for a customer 360. Now it's multiple levels deeper. What was the interplay between a customer, in their, online and offline shopping? And if they did purchase last, offline, was there a digital experience that was contained in that? These are now the table stakes around this next, degree of customer 360. I think for customers who have been able to build a basic, and workable identity model and build basics around what forms a customer 360, really, to stay competitive, it's build a hyper accurate identity model, which leverages third party data, which really, accounts for the real nuances of customers having multiple email addresses and householding and beyond, and then take that and overlay that with a next level of data, which, can really only be stored and warehoused, in these large scale, cloud data systems. And I think that's sort of your customer data, enterprise data strategy to a T, is having a business that has a footprint, and being able to capture that digitally, to deploy it into business processes.
So you're saying, Jason, that enterprises may have reached that sort of the traditional way of thinking about customer 360, but they really need to go deeper.
That's right. I mean, it's like, evolving from the dash cam on your car to full LiDAR, and bumper cameras everywhere.
That's a great analogy. Let's talk, Jason, about, the topic that's catching everybody's attention these days, generative AI and LLMs. You have data science background. You probably have a lot of, you put a lot of thought into this. What do you see the impact of generative AI and LLMs on the marketing landscape? Are there things that we're going to be able to do easily today with these technologies that we couldn't do, 5 years ago, 10 years?
Yeah, 100%. I think, look, the hardest challenge with data access for business stakeholders is data literacy. And data literacy, is rooted in two problems. One is, a semantic understanding of the data. And the second is, a technical knowledge on how to, leverage that semantic understanding of the data to actually answer the questions you want to answer. And I think what there are many people solving the data dictionary problem. I think there are big challenges, in the category. I think the LLMs and generative AI capabilities, will really open up a whole new set of opportunities for business stakeholders to access the cloud data warehouse and what would otherwise be sort of full code data sources.
Oh, fantastic, Jason. This has been very insightful. Really deep knowledge that you've shared and vast experience across now 2 companies that you started. Again, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jason.
Well, thanks for having me on. I had a fantastic conversation with both of you.
I thought one thing he said was very interesting. He's obviously, very smart guy, PhD from UT Austin. And he said, it took me 5 years into the PhD program in, data science, machine learning, to realize that it's not the algorithms, it's the data and the use of the data. And that's what matters more than the algorithm. So that's interesting perspective coming from somebody like him.
Right. And just I think that he provides tons of very applicable business knowledge and acumen in the conversation here. And so for me, it was this, reminding us that, many of the business initiatives that we talk about are moving target, like Customer 360. We're constantly chasing and coming out with new ideas on what Customer 360 is and what becomes table stakes. And obviously, technology continues to catch up. And so with Customer 360, for example, well, yes, we have that cross-channel view. We can collect the data, but it's getting to that omni-channel understanding and, the deeper behaviors behind it. So there's new technologies that emerge. We talked about generative AI as one and other advanced analytics techniques that are going to continue to emerge for us to have that deeper understanding of customer behavior and what really Customer 360 is. Much more than visibility, but actually true deeper understanding.
Yeah, and on the generative AI LLM front, I think it's interesting what he said about data literacy. At the end of the day, you want analytics to be accessible for the business user. And they're the ones who are the decision makers. They're running the business. And it's historically been very hard to get them to do analytics, impactful analytics, because of lack of literacy, lack of data literacy. And that's the biggest hurdle, and that LLMs and generative AI could potentially solve.
That concludes today's show. Thank you for joining us, and feel free to reach out to Vijay or I on LinkedIn or Twitter with any questions or suggestions for future shows. So until next time, goodbye.